Why microphone seminar? As we all know, microphone is the most important in the sound chain from music, speech to the final product. And also because topic microphone includes a lot of beliefs and maybe also prejudices about how to use them and what to choose. I am often asked as a teacher and sound engineer, what is a good microphone? Give me a hint, what should I buy? And my answer is that there is no easy answer. Choosing a microphone is a little like choosing a wife. Who likes the blonde and who likes the dark? Who likes mother, who likes daughter? So after today, maybe we all like redheads, who knows? So let the experts talk. And I'm very happy to welcome ex-Schöpf's chief engineer and now consultant Jörg Wuttke from Germany.
Hello, welcome ladies and gentlemen. I would like to stay like this for you, but this light is disturbing for me, so please allow that I will stay seated. You see me anyway, I guess. So, I do not really know what you expect of me. I also do not know your background. So I chose a variety of topics and I will certainly run out of time. Nevertheless, I start with this consideration. It is strange, but if dealing with microphones, you should always be aware that this is not just technique. It is, on one side, the technical part, and we should be aware that without technique, without engineering, there wouldn't even be any microphone. On the other side, people who are using microphones, they very often are musicians and they like music, so emotion is involved. These are two parameters that are completely different and they are no enemies. No, we have to combine them. We have to see both. But there are too many victims who are just emotional. That's bad, because if you have just emotions, you can go very wrong. I tell you one example I had. It's long ago, so that there is now a barrel of time, because a barrier of time, so I can talk about it. But it's 30 years ago when I built an amplifier and I made modifications on it. And I've shown this to my customers and said, listen, I made the following. And I gave rather interesting explanations, I think. So everybody heard what I did. And they said, okay, you should definitely make that and produce it. That will be really successful. When these people have gone, I thought I must die. Because I was looking on my laboratory desk and I saw there was a bypass. This bypass was always on. So all people were listening all the time, again and again, to the same. But after having had a good explanation, without whine, just a good explanation, they were fully convinced that's it. So be careful about the expectation you have. You will, something that is more expensive will usually sound more, it will sound better. Let's not speak about cables. That would be now a topic, and well, you have seen what I have written down here. I think I do not have to explain this because I have to spare time. So, usually we want a good sound, and this good sound is usually described in magazines and so on as warm, powerful, airy, soft, musical and audiophile. I must tell you, I'm so sorry, I have no idea what all of this means. That is crazy. It belongs into the domain of art. And by the way, this flute will not give a good tone, it's a microphone. Maybe you noticed, it's a shotgun. Anyway, it's art and it doesn't help. It's the only way to explain what a microphone can do should be based on science. I sometimes tell musicians who want to explain me that the diaphragm should be thinner or whatever, wait a minute, I could explain you precisely why I'm not making it thinner, because it makes no sense, and I can explain. And please, if you stop talking about technical things that you did not learn, I will promise you that I will not change the keys in your score, because that's not my field. Now, in practice, there is an interest to compare words with the sound, and there was a very interesting paper of B&K in the year 1977. You will know it. But let's start like this. The most common type of question is, what is the best microphone for a specific musical instrument, or for vocals? Vocals, that's always the point. Users who like this concept, they like this concept because if they don't understand physics, okay, it's easy to follow recipes and they are happy. On the other side, as a manufacturer, we are all happy if everyone would buy special types of microphones for each instrument. That makes you sell more microphones. The belief that there should be a special microphone for each instrument is due to the commonly observed defects in microphones, which, for example, might sound good only in certain parts of their frequency range. If there is no high end, maybe you can use it for the bass drum, but that does not mean that the bass drum cannot be recorded with any other microphone. So we should better try to understand what we are doing. And then do not forget that all studios, many studios at least, they started when the people have been young. They had no money, so they bought inexpensive microphones, and now they had to find out which microphone can be used for which application. That's a good reason, but that should not be the basis for their future. A good microphone can record anything, just as you do not change your ears if you are listening to speech or music or whatever. A microphone is, for me, a technical product that can be understood. That's why I have the title, Understanding Microphones. Okay, I think a sonic coloration, however, is sometimes desired. But we should understand which kind of coloration will be helpful for a certain application. I sometimes compare with food. A good cook will be unhappy if you give him meat that has already a flavor that exists. You can buy it. Now I can be the cook and make you a meal with curry taste. If you give this to a good cook, he will be very unhappy because he will never get rid of this taste. So my basis is the sound should start to be neutral. That does not mean that it must stay neutral. You must now add spices. And for me, that's the equalizer and all other kind of stuff that allows you these manipulations in a way that you control the whole system. Good recording engineers control their system and they know what they are doing. How often have I seen that there was somewhere an EQ and then I followed the chain and I saw there is another EQ and there is a valley and there is a peak. They just cancel each other. That makes no sense. A recording engineer must use his intelligence. Okay. What we need. It would be so nice for me if now I could say, well, if you would like finally a good recording, what you need is Schoeps microphones. Sorry, I'm not a salesman, and that would simply be unfair. No, that would not be honest. If you want a good recording, you should start with a good instrument. And by the way, having a Stradivari, would you really like to have at the end the sound of the Stradivari plus a microphone that is told to be best for violins? No, no. You just want the sound of the Stradivari. So a good instrument to start with. Without a skilled musician, the good instrument will not help. If I play a Stradivari, you will run away. A good sounding room. Do not try to make the recording in your bathroom. That's a bad idea. Then a faithfully transmitting equipment. And even this is not helpful if there is not someone behind who knows how to deal with it, how to use it. So for me, we have the field of art, and there is so much you have to control and you can play with. That's how the sound is created, that's the sound field itself, and so on. But then the field of computable technique, and for me, starts already with a microphone. The microphone should not belong to the instruments. So I hate this discussion, which is the best microphone for violin? No, a good microphone can do it all. So I explained already what I think about natural sound, and the role of the microphone is the following. First, we have to see that good sound is subjective. There are a few examples. You have to learn what is good. That's true for good wines. Someone who just is an alcoholic, he will not appreciate a good wine. He doesn't know what good wines mean. You have to learn that. The same is ability to read music. Someone who cannot read notes, he will be lost. For him, that's just a strange pattern and nothing. But I have a friend, I can't understand that. He's happy to read something like this. He doesn't need the music. Just reading it is fun for him. So we need education. And you can't believe how important that is. Even if it comes, for example, to stereo. You need to teach someone what stereo means. Otherwise, he will not appreciate it. I was invited by a friend who said, he's a guitarist. Oh, I got a recording. It was me. Listen to it. It's so great. I listened. And well, I tend to be honest. And I said, sorry, I'm not happy. You are happy? There's something wrong. I was looking around, and what did I find? One of the loudspeakers has not been connected. One wire was not connected. So I said, well, now listen to the difference. Oh yeah, you are right. That's better now. So as long as there is nobody who teaches you what good stereo is, you have no hope that this will succeed. By the way, that's even much worse if we come to the topic of surround. I could demonstrate you some good surround recordings such that you will say, okay, that's what I want. But the majority of surround products that are on the market are not of this style. That's unhappy for the whole business. We should have good examples and we should teach people to understand what it is. And someone who makes stereo and he has one loudspeaker in the kitchen and the other one in the sleeping room, he will never be happy with stereo. So, that was, of course, the matter of taste. And then the education. Now comes taste. Some people like meat. I like fish. It's very good in Helsinky. And others are vegetarians. Who is right? Nobody is right. Everybody has his own taste, and we have to be aware of it. So if you are making a production, be aware who will be your customer. You want to sell your product. So even if you do not like meat yourself, but your customer is a meat eater, make it right for him. So subjective parameters are always influenced by fashion too, by the way. Then, technique. We come to the technique for having good sound. There, it's not just the equipment, but as I mentioned before, you also must understand how to use it. And there is, for example, the angle of sound incidence that is extremely important. Let's see examples. This young lady, she's so happy. He is in the studio. Now she will be like Mariah Carey. Too bad. She has no idea how to use a microphone, because you will know this microphone. This is 90 degrees off axis. That will be just for a large diaphragm microphone. That will be a bad sound. What she needs is a good recording engineer who is using correctly the product. So she is happy but wrong. Another girl of this style. They are just happy in front of such a microphone. And by the way, it has to be large. While I want to convince you that a good microphone is not large. That is something that is very difficult to understand, and some people are reluctant to accept this because they like this beauty. But then I have to ask you, if you are a recording engineer, what is your first concern? Is it the optic? the appearance, or could it be the sound? So if you want a good sound, the microphone is not large. And I know that I'm speaking sometimes to walls. People do not want to understand this. But I could, we do not have enough time, but I could give you examples. Here is another thing. This guy is speaking on axis. The lady is 90 degrees off axis. That means for a cardioid it is minus 6 dB. I ask, is this already discrimination of women? She is lower in level. Okay, here, people were comparing microphones. Sorry, that's very bad, because the angle of sound incidence for the different microphones is different, and then you cannot get the same sound. I will give you one short example. I will not have the time to give you all demos, but this one is important and you don't find it on the internet. This here is a demo I would like to show you. A student got 14 microphones that have all been identical, and they were positioned around different instruments, always in the same distance, about the same distance, because of course the instrument itself has a size. And then you could try what will the sound be. So let's take this gentleman. We can ask them to play for us. I take now this guy, and I choose the music, and I position my microphone here. Let's position the microphone just a little bit lower. I think that is a remarkable difference. We could go now through hundreds of these examples, and it only shows that some people who are comparing microphones should be aware that if the two microphones that are to be compared are not in the same spot, the whole difference may be due to the positioning of their microphones. So we could spend a lot of time with this, but we have to quit this now. And in any case, there is even literature about this written by Jörg Meyer, Acoustic and Musikalische Ausführungspraxis. There he describes the radiation pattern of different instruments. You should be aware of that. So, placement, the angle of sound incidence is one thing. The next thing is the distance. You all know, if you are very close, it sounds different from being very far. And the law behind this, if we have a spherical sound wave, then the sound pressure will decrease with the distance, such that if you have twice the distance, you have minus 6 dBs. But then we have, that's the so-called direct sound. And the closer you go, the more you get the direct sound. If you are in an anechoic room, you should only have the direct sound. But then there is a reverberation, sound reflected by the walls, and you have a diffuse sound that is the same about everywhere in the room. And these are thousands of reflections. And so finally, the sound comes from everywhere. The diffuse sound has no direction. So it can also not help localization. On the opposite, it disturbs localization. That is some kind of mist. It's just the direct sound that allows you localization. But that's a topic that I cannot begin today. That would be the topic recording. Okay. The spot where the direct sound is on the same level like the diffuse sound is called the critical distance. And the total level is of course this. We have one example how it sounds very close or at a farther distance, but I will not make this demo I want to spare time, I have to. If you open the shop site down here, then you can find the so-called showroom. That's an interactive demo, and you have different possibilities. You can listen to different forms of recording, MS, AB, XY, ORTF, and so on. And if you try what the speaker is doing, then you can listen at different distances. And you see now we have more reverb because we are far away, and now we have less. And the different directivities are also shown. But I skip the demo. the distance. Then the microphone, that is now one parameter that I would call application, general application. It should not be in the way. Very often you are not allowed to position a microphone wherever you want. By the way, if you have to position a microphone, it's not a bad idea to go there where the microphone will be and to run around. I have seen famous recording engineers, award-winning people like Onno Scholze and so on. I saw him running in the orchestra, going there and there. He tried where will be the sound best. That's a good idea. And not in the way. That means also that you have to respect certain laws of practice. So this is an old thing. In the 60s already, there was an American company that doesn't exist anymore. I don't know why. Altec. They made this advertising. They said, let's make small microphones, because otherwise we hide the people that are the singer. So also this can go wrong. Even with small microphones, it can go wrong. Other things that are no good application is, for example, this. This is no good application. Oh my God. But anyway, I was surprised in that case. This is not a handheld microphone. I wanted to speak with her, but I didn't succeed. Anyway, this voice is so loud that, in fact, the solid bore noise due to touching was no problem in that case. And the one thing that I would discuss now, having more time, would be what is this kind of windshield? Because that is, of course, a problem. If people are going so close, then that must be a very special one. And don't say, well, I know these windshields. No, that's just something that happens too often. People say, well, I take a Schoeps and then I take a foam windshield like this. Great. No, that's not the color that makes the protection. It's the special design. And this special design means that this windshield is hollow. It's very important for all directional microphones that they have a volume around the two acoustic entrances. And there's Pavarotti with 3 of them, of course, for different purposes, for recording, for the room, and so on. And then avoid unpredictable sound effects. Okay, now, of course, that's a little bit aggressive, because what I mean by unpredictable sound effects, that is, in fact, the large diaphragm microphone. Most people who are using them don't know what they really do, because I will show you some of their response curves, and you will say, well, do I really want that? But don't forget, at the beginning of pop music, people like Elvis have been famous, and they have been recorded with these microphones. Do not forget, at that time, smaller microphones did not exist. That is one of the reasons. And now it is a mistake if people believe if we only buy these vintage microphones, we will get back the old times. No, we will get back some of the problems they had at that time. By the way, I have to say, a good thing, for all those who are collectors of vintage microphones, I had a chance to get 3 vintage microphones, the most famous ones. I don't tell you which ones, but for several thousand euros the piece. And I had the occasion to compare them. I had them all. You can't believe how different they have been. So there is not one vintage sound. You are simply in a mist. You are in the dark. You do not know what you do. I have to say this RCA microphone was a ribbon microphone. That is, in fact, a rather good one. No question. But it is wrong if people make it a symbol of them being an artist. This is just pure art, nothing but this. And if a young guy comes into a studio, he wants to see this. That is studio-like. And you have problems sometimes to convince someone that a smaller microphone would be better. We have even one customer, he told me, oh yes, I know so well, but I don't want these discussions with my artists. I put them a large diaphragm microphone in front of their mouth. And below is yours. And the other one is not even connected. I'm recording with a small microphone because I'm responsible for the sound and not for the optic. But okay, if you want no more, type in my name under any browser and you will find an interview that I have given to an American journalist. I also got some very, very, angry people on the phone. Okay, yes, if this is their God, I can't help. We can understand the reasons of this if we start with fundamental considerations. And now I wonder how fundamental I may be. I continue like this and I will stop if my time is over. We will not come to the end, I'm afraid. The wavelength. Now it's physics, what I'm talking about. This is a sound wave. I could make you a demo, but that's not important. The important thing is, we should be aware that whatever happens in an acoustic field, or in a field of waves altogether, what is the ratio between the wavelength, that what you can see here, between the peak and the peak, or the valley and the valley, and the object. So, the wavelength of 1 kilohertz is 34 centimeters. 100 hertz, and that's not the lowest frequency, is 3.4 meters. So you can say for 100 hertz, nearly all objects we are dealing with, even loudspeakers, they are small compared to the wavelength of 100 hertz. That's quite different if we consider the frequency of 10 kilohertz. 10 kilohertz, in fact, means a wavelength of this, and even our small microphones are not really small anymore. They can be compared. And what's going to happen if we have a small or another object in the sound field is the following. There comes a flat sound wave from here, and you see, if the object is small, the sound wave is still the same flat sound wave after the obstacle. If it is large, the sound field is destroyed. It's not there anymore. Same if it is a spherical sound wave. This is not really a problem because the sound wave is longer than the obstacle. Here, the sound wave, the obstacle is about the same in size like the sound wave, and we have problems. Here comes a sound wave. And it is you see the length of the sound wave is smaller than the obstacle. And now you will say, what happens to this sound wave? At the other end, it is completely destroyed. It will not recover. And so, if you have any large obstacle in the sound wave, you do not record the sound wave that is original. You can try. Put something close to your ear, and you will notice the differences immediately. But if you put this, you will hear no difference at all. I have the same for the small obstacle there. The sound wave simply continues without being disturbed at all. Nevertheless, these microphones are king, but even in that field there are people who discovered the small microphone might be better. By the way, I see Eddie. He's smiling all the time because he's going to say the same. We are on the same party, not in the same company. He's DPA, I'm Shops, but we share this opinion. They are the other maker of good microphones, no? Oh, that's true. In the inner, if you open this microphone, you can see this. This is in fact a small microphone, but it has what they call, they have a shell. They have a shell, and now the optic is also fulfilled. But there is an influence. This is the microphone without the shell. That's the microphone with the shell. So even there, the shell has an influence. Not too bad in this case. Obstacles could be another topic for very long discussions. And in fact, a cylinder is not the best shape. Spheres give much better results, and so I do not describe the details of this. But that is a very old research of Olsen. And then I simply explain, if you compare the cylinder with a sphere, you can see that all these curves are much smoother than here if it is a cylinder. So for that reason, in early times there came very good microphones, like this Neumann microphone. Schoeps made another one, which was a sphere. And today we have attachments. If we can put on a cylindrical microphone, such a sphere, it will have another character, and that character in fact cannot be made by means of an equalizer, because these are things that happen in the acoustical sound field. I show you what the difference is. This is the frequency response of the harmony on axis, and off axis you see it is not an harmony, otherwise it should always be the same level, but off axis an harmony reduces high frequencies as long as it is this size. If you take a 40-60, so dPa, it's always the same. That's a perfect harmony. The studio harmonies are never perfect, even those that have a diameter of, let's say, 16 millimeters. Now I speak about yours, ours are 20. They are not perfectly omni at high frequencies. But then if I put the sphere on it, it happens this. And if I just switch between these two, you can see it is in this area, this accentuation, this bow, that is what you hear. It's not so much at the high end what's happening. It's definitely the increase of level in this area. Okay, now I come to the specifications. Frequency response is the most important. In early years of audio, some researchers even found that phase importance has no importance. Again and again, people are discussing it, and I would say, well, I tell you, when the phase response has an importance, and in fact, I'm not among those who say, no, we do not have to care about the phase response. No, it is important for certain things. For example, if you are making coincident microphone recordings and so on, it is essential. But it is not as important like the frequency response that in general is just the response of the amplitude. And then the polar response. So the frequency response. The ideal would be that all frequencies are transmitted with equal level. If you get this, then of course you should be aware that frequencies in this area will be transmitted with a lower level. Who can want this? And if you do this without knowing it, then you should not believe this is a good product because the sound is so good. No, this is again emotion. This is without theoretical background. Believe me, if you say, but I'm just a musician, I do not want to know all of that, okay, I agree and I can understand it, because music is its own business and has its own laws. But it's nevertheless, it is better if you understand what you are doing. For certain applications, a non-ideal frequency response might be welcome. And for that we have equalizers. Now I come to the point, when is phase response important? If we have an acoustical event, this should be a sound pressure, so the level and the time, then a good microphone, from my scientific point of view, should transfer this variation of sound pressure to an identical change of voltage. That is an undistorted signal transfer. And this requires a constant amplitude, as mentioned before. That's the frequency response. And the phase response, even this shows me that many people do not understand what the phase response really means. It should not be constant. They have been advertising people who said to us, our phase response looks as good as the frequency response, it's always constant. I must say, no, these people just show me that they have no idea what phase response means. You must not be afraid about a phase shift of 90 degrees or something like that. If someone wants to make you afraid, 90 degrees phase shifts, now our microphone is only 70 degrees phase shift. No, stupid nonsense. If I have this microphone here, or I have it here, it doesn't change too much. At least the quality of the sound field will be the same, except that I have more reverberance if I'm farther away. But between here and here can be already a phase shift of 90 degrees for a certain frequency. For twice that frequency, I get twice that phase. So the phase must be proportional, it must be linear, it must be proportional with the frequency, and what has to be constant is the so-called group delay. Too much for today. Other people say, well, let's look what the transfer function is, let's use impulses. That's a good idea. Neumann has their own system, that is a spark, that's a good idea. We came later with this research, and in fact I'm a little proud about what we did, because we are using, in fact, step functions. And at the very beginning I had difficulties to believe that we can produce step functions in acoustics. But there is in fact one loudspeaker that can do that, Manga. And well, I could now at length explain that I can see, having these step functions, what the frequency response and what the phase response will be. Because the advantage of these step functions is that they include both. By the way, just to give one example, the so-called rise time indicates me what the upper corner frequency of the audio band will be, and you can calculate it. If now I look what's going on at an angle of 90 degrees, you see that the rise time is not as steep. Yes, that is because an harmony at 90 degrees has already a frequency response that's going down at higher frequencies. Okay, these are frequency response curves of omnidirectional microphones. First one, catalog. Second is definitely a real measurement. Okay, this is a frequency response of a large diaphragm microphone. And I wonder how someone can tolerate this up and down of so many dBs. I'm also sometimes amused if I hear people speaking about certain amplifiers and so on, and they have -2 dB or -0.5 dB at a certain point, and people are very uneasy about that. If they would be aware that all this is in series in the whole transmission line, then they would say ±10 dB should not be tolerated. And I was very surprised in one audio magazine, just this microphone was described, and that was the response that they have shown in their report, that the instrument shows up surprisingly powerful and thick in the loudspeakers. Where else? And amazing resolution and outstanding details in the mid-range. I have no idea what that means. So maybe I'm not a microphone specialist. Descriptions of this manner are nothing but poetry. If you want to compare microphone data, there is one thing on the internet, that is what you can see here, microphone data. You have to register, but you must not be afraid. This is a company that will never ask for more. They simply want to know who were looking for their publication. It was Chris Wolf, a friend of mine, who really took the task to put all the sheets of different manufacturers into the same scale, so you can really compare. So there you find curves like this. These are all frequency response curves of large diaphragm microphones. And if I'm so much against these irregular curves where they have no explanation, then I must say, well, there are more than one element in an audio chain. So if now you add simply these two curves, you can do it, but that means work. You are in some kind of mist. While if I have this microphone and I need a high end boost and I adjust my equalizer like this, then I know already what the final result will be. And now it's going to be scientific. Now you know what you are doing. These are typical frequency response curves of good small diaphragm microphones, also taken out of this book. Now there's of course one real problem. The frequency response is something that is important, as I mentioned, that you cannot describe a transducer, anything in acoustics, by one frequency response curve. That is the problem. I understand if someone says, yes, I've seen the frequency response curve, it looks good, but the microphone doesn't sound good. Yes, I understand, I agree. Because you can never describe one microphone by one frequency response curve. That is a basic mistake. That is completely wrong. And you should, in fact, not only look on the response curve because it's measured on axis. That is what we have here on the upper curve. That's on axis. For other sound angles, you have different curves. For other angles of sound incidence, you have different curves. And if now I look what's happening with a cardioid, it looks like this. For a cardioid, you have, first of all, you have always a typical roll-off for all so-called pressure gradient microphones. All directional microphones must have this kind of roll-off. And then we have, of course, now an attenuation that is wideband, because that's what we want. We want a cardioid to have a lower sensitivity off axis than on axis. So for that reason you can see we have a lower sensitivity, the whole audio band, minus 6 dB for a cardioid. But look here, isn't it interesting that just in this area, instead of going down, there is a rise. Here it drops, here it rises compared to the on-axis response. This insight was the birth of our wide-angle cardioid, because there we found a compromise between these two extremes, and this in fact is a microphone that has about the same frequency response curves for all angles of sound incidence, to be honest, up to 10 kHz. Above, it's not the same anymore, and that's due to the fact that even a 20mm microphone is too big. What about larger ones? Here we see how we can simplify. We have the free field, that's the upper curve, and the diffuse field, that is the lower curve. Because, as I explained, the diffuse field contains all directions, so we get an average, and for that reason it drops. And for that reason we have these two types. 5 minutes, my God. We have these different two types of pressure transducers. The one for the free field, that means if you measure only what is happening on axis in a free field without reflections, then this is ideal. But if you are far away, you have to respect that a majority of sound might be diffused, and then you get this response. For that reason, there is a second model that has a frequency boost at the high frequencies. But it's not there for having more high end. No, it's there for equalizing the loss in the diffuse sound field, because there it's approximately constant. So, what else? Okay. There are, in fact, it's long ago, but then the IRT, an institute that was founded by the ARD in Germany, broadcast in former times, wanted an institute that measures everything, and they never bought things that have been rubbish. I think that was a very wise decision. Today the IRT has to earn money, and now the industry has an influence on them. At that time they had been completely independent, and they measured always the on-axis response and what happens in the diffuse sound field. And you can see these curves. Being now under time pressure, I cannot go into explanations, but you see how different this is, the direct sound field and the diffuse sound field. These two are very similar. It's a small diaphragm microphone, and the so-called directivity index does nearly not change. That is a wonderful microphone, and if you are unhappy with this boost, okay, equalize it. But in that case you can equalize, because what you can never equalize, and that is why you cannot use an equalizer to transfer the sound of one microphone into the sound of another microphone. The difference in sound is not the frequency response curve alone, it is also the frequency response curve of the directivity index. Oh, I think, just to end, I would now have to speak about polar diagrams, and then let's end this with this, I hope, amusing demo. I would have much more, but for that I would need another hour or more, maybe another time. But in any case, I want to tell you the frequency response of the directivity index is essential for the different sounds, and you can control it due to the system that we patented at Schoeps. It's called Polar Flex. If you look on our homepage, you will see more about it, and maybe I will show you the last foil. You could also see on my homepage, because there are some more explanations. I'm sorry, my homepage is until now just in German, but just this demo, you can find it on my homepage, for example, so you will find it out yourself, because what it is the polar diagram. When I did this, my wife suddenly said, now I understand what the polar pattern is. When I did this, I was very angry about the birds. Because you heard them when the train was here. But after that I thought, no, that they were welcome. Because otherwise someone would have said, yeah, you are using your fader. No, I did not. Then the birds would not have been heard either. So that's a good demo. I have this for all directions, all directivities. So that was just the last thing. And now let me see what else. This is perhaps interesting to see. Just that you see you can have variations between all these different patterns. That is what you are usually working with. These are all the so-called pressure gradient transducers of first order. Okay, and that is a polar flex system. And now I thank you, and you see also the indication of my homepage where you can find some and more of these explanations. Thank you very much.